Hey, Yinz guys and gals, gather around for a journey like no other. It's time to hop on board the Yinz Goin podcast. From the rivers that meet at the point to form downtown Pittsburgh, to the sheer face of Half Dome, to the furthest corners of the globe, Matt will be your compass, your confidant, your companion as we explore the wonders of travel. So sit back, relax on your couch, and let the wanderlust whoosh over Yinz as we discover new horizons and reminisce about old favorites. With Matt by our side, the sky's the limit. Join Matt on the Yinz Goin podcast because when it comes to travel, the journey's just getting started. And now, without further ado, let's give a shot for your guide through the highways and byways of travel. Your planning partner, the man with the map, Matt Schraeder. Hi, Yinz doing? Welcome to the Where It's Going podcast. I'm Matt. I'm your host. Back today by popular demand are my Civil War reenactor friends, Tyler, aka Turtle, and Roger. Okay, that's not true. I don't have any friends, but it's good to have you back, guys. It is by popular demand. You were requested that someone specifically asked to have an episode about what we're going to talk about, the Battle of Antietam. So that's for our northern listeners. For our southern listeners, it's the Battle of Sharpsburg. So regardless of what you call it, it was the bloodiest day in American history. And that's going to be our topic today. But welcome back, gentlemen.
Good to be back.
Yep, same here.
So when we have guests on, at least ones that aren't on here like every week, like some of the other ones, Amanda, we like to ask, what is your favorite place to visit, or is there a place you'd like to visit the most? Now, last time, Turtle, you said Sharpsburg. So is that still going to be your
Yep.
answer?
So my favorite place. I love it down there. I still want to move down there. I've just enjoyed the area. So much history. And it's close to other places that have history. It's hour drive from Winchester. It's right by Harper's Ferry, Hagerstown.
And you're
There's
also
just
from
history.
Gettysburg.
Yeah, hour from Gettysburg.
Roger, you want to add to your favorite place?
Man, I think I said Gettysburg last time, wasn't it? Was it Gettysburg?
There was also another place that you mentioned. I can't remember what it was.
Might have been South Mountain.
That was it.
Which this is close to that too. So
It's
it's
actually
all
part of the
just
same
in the
campaign.
same area.
Yeah.
So, and I was just listening to our first episode about Gettysburg the other day, and actually this morning as we were recording this. So, just to recap and get people up to speed on who we're talking to, both of my guests, Roger and Turtle, they are reenactors in the 31st Virginia, which was active from July of 1861 through April of 1865. So, pretty much the entire length or entire duration, there's a good word for it, of the Civil War. And a couple of the battles they were in, I have a nice little list here of, they were in the Battle of Philippi in 1861, and Philippi, West Virginia, or back then it would have been Philippi, Virginia. It's, an hour and a half, 2 hours south, or no, not even that far. Maybe about an hour or so south of Morgantown, West Virginia, southeast a little bit. Then there was Jackson's Valley campaign, the 7 Days Battle, Second Battle of Bull Run or Second Manassas, depending on your perspective. They were at Antietam, then Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, Gettysburg, which we talked about before, Cold Harbor, Petersburg, the Valley campaigns of 1864, and then, sadly for those guys, Appomattox campaign. It didn't end well for the South then.
No, especially the 31st.
There wasn't many.
There was only
there.
48 men left in the whole 31st Virginia with 2 officers.
And how many would have started off in the 31st?
About 1,500 to 900 troops.
And that was the typical thing of starting around 1,000, and then whenever whenever there were casualties or illness or whatever else, they dropped off and they just weren't replaced. And you fought until there wasn't anyone else to fight or until your time ran out.
And the sad thing is about the 31st, only 24 of them had rifles out of the 48.
You could share.
One man gets the bullets, one man gets the rifle.
And that's what Russia did during World War II. They gave one guy bullets. Hey, go get that guy's gun if he fell.
And that was another thing I've seen in some other battles. I think it was at Fredericksburg. when they had the Confederates had the stone wall.
Yeah,
And they would,
one man loaded, hand the rifle up, next guy put the cap on, next guy fire. They would just
well,
pass rifles.
yeah,
Pass and fire, pass and fire.
you had a couple guys who were loading since you didn't quite have enough rifles to pass back and forth. But one neat thing that we got to do was at the West Virginia University Archives, we got to see some of the artifacts of the 31st Virginia. And this included some handwritten notes from Stonewall Jackson and the ledger of payments to the soldiers. It was pretty interesting, like, okay, this guy got a new pair of pants, and this guy was given socks, and he had to owe this much, and this guy got paid on this date. All those Confederate money, so I don't know how much that was worth.
Actually, Confederate soldiers made about the same amount as a federal soldier when we got paid, if we got paid. It was usually about $13 a month is what they were paid. Um, Confederate currency being what it was, didn't have much gold backing, so it was just basically paper. I mean, it basically was paper, where the Union can rely on gold reserve, where the South didn't have it.
Yeah, it was what the old saying about it says valuable as a Confederate dollar or something.
Hmm.
So one thing that I didn't really get into the last time we talked to you, or the other times we've talked to you, because we had to re-record that Gettysburg episode, and I think it's becoming a tradition here that this is the third time that we've tried to record this podcast. Different things happen. It's like, oh, well, can't make it that day. We haven't scheduled it. Something came up. Reminds me of the old Brady Bunch episode. Whenever she was going, didn't want to go to the dance with the one kid. Oh, something suddenly came up.
Yeah.
So, but what got you guys interested in the Civil War?
Um, for me, it was my family history that got me real into it, and I figured out that I had relatives fight in it in both armies. I had relatives fight in one fight in the 31st. I had one that was in the 96th Pennsylvania Infantry. I had two in the 6th West Virginia and one in the 1st West Virginia Cavalry. So for me, it was a family thing. And then I just started reading about it, and then I showed up at a reenactment just to watch one. I was like, I want to do that. I want to see what it felt like to actually be them. And I figured out that it's tough to live without a cell phone, a TV, and air conditioning. It's not fun. I mean it's a fun hobby, don't get me wrong, but you start appreciating things a lot more.
For me, believe it or not, it was actually going to Harper's Ferry for a camping trip. There's a KOA right below Boulevard Heights. I went down there and I forget what age, probably like 5 or 6. I have little toy trucks digging and all that, and I found a bullet on the campground. And that basically is what got me into it because I didn't know anything about it. I just knew stuff happened there, and I started learning stuff since then and found a group out of Jackson's Jane Lou down that way, and then slowly made my way to the 31st and been there ever since. But if the world ever ends or power's out for a good bit, reenactors are pretty set because we know how to live with that.
Yeah.
But I just ever since then just fell in love with it and love the history.
Yeah, I've talked about it on here before that whenever I was in high school, my chemistry teacher was a Civil War reenactor. And he had the chance to be in the movie Gettysburg, but his wife was in labor at that time, or very pregnant at least, with his first son. So he chose the, I'm going to say, better path, but before his relationship with his wife, and he stayed home with her and missed their reenactment, but I mean, being, his chance at glory. Although we do have a mutual friend who was in that movie, Jim Barnes.
Jim Barnes.
I
Yeah.
actually did not know that.
Yeah, he was in it.
Yeah, I talked to him just the other day that he was in the up by with Pickett's charge up by the stone wall, and there's a point where the guy next to him kind of wasn't paying attention, whatever. He kind of like grabs him and pulls him along. So look for a guy with white hair who grabs a Union guy and grabs another Union guy to pull him along.
And
I have to watch
I did
that
Gods
now.
and Generals.
Well, me and you have a mutual friend too. It's in the 501st that lives down that way towards Sharpsburg.
And who's that?
Oh God, James.
Um, Welsh.
Yeah, he's a reenactor.
I didn't know he was a reenactor.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
reenactor.
I forget which unit he's with.
He does artillery in that at Sharpsburg.
Yeah,
But he was in the movie Gettysburg as well. because he tells me ghost stories and all that, what happened up there and when he was doing it.
There was also another guy in the 501st and Rebel Legion. He is in Virginia. Um, his name's Rick Brujas.
I don't know that one.
So yeah, I don't think you would know him. I know him.
Yeah, it's a good thing about reenactors. We don't know each other's names, but if we see each other at an event, we're like, "Oh, hey, how you
Yeah.
doing?"
It's that guy.
It's that guy. You know?
Hey, Bub.
Yeah,
Hey, guy.
that's like there's one guy in the 52nd Virginia. We just know him by the nickname Mississippi. I mean, it's crazy because we just, hey, how you doing? You'll walk by like, man, who was that? I've done that several times. I don't know if Turtle has, but
No, I know like some of the colonels and all that. I don't know their name, but I'm like, hey, I recognize you. You
yeah, you're like,
saved me.
yeah, you're the one that gets a shot. Yeah, thanks.
Then after a while, it gets to the point where it's all right. I've known you for years. I don't know your name. I can't ask your name now.
Well, that's like Turtle's nickname.
That's
Everybody don't know him by
literally
his name.
nobody
It's always
nobody knows
Turtle.
my. I think everyone forgot my real name at this point.
And you guys notice turtles are at a reenactment because if you look at his canteen, he's got a picture of a turtle painted on it. So if you don't see his face, you see the turtle and it's
That's how
canteen.
you
Like, oh,
find
that's
me.
Turtle.
That's how you find me.
Anyway, with my chemistry teacher, that whenever we were studying American history and we got to the Civil War, he was the one who came in and taught the lesson. And we watched the movie Gettysburg, and he explained, okay, here's what a regiment was, here's what a division was, here's a corps, here's how they were combined. And he gave a little bit of some background on it and some of the details and logistics and what it was like then. Then we watched the movie Gettysburg, and he pointed out all the inaccuracies. Well, something that I thought was really neat and kind of brought it to life. And then a couple years later in college, I read the book The Killer Angels by uh, Michael Schraeder. And it's a historical fiction novel. So it basically tells you what happened, but it makes it more interesting. It's like, you're there, but it's more interesting than just, and these troops moved here and this. And so it brought it more to life.
It brings it more to a human level.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main thing. You can look at, and that's why I always tell people about reenactments. It's one thing to read in a book until you come out and actually meet someone like me, a Turtle, or anybody else in our unit, or any of the Union troops. It's not on a human level in a history book. We have a lot of kids come up to us and ask, "Hey, can we feel your uniform, or can we feel how heavy the rifle was?" Or and that makes you feel good. It really does.
Kids just paying attention to it now makes you feel good. It's like actually they're gonna learn something and
Mhm.
maybe get into it one day. Because most of the time they're just like, oh, I've been called multiple times. Oh, look at the hillbillies. I've been called that multiple times going to schools and that. But when a kid comes up and is just like, this is so cool, I like it, and then they keep coming back, and then at one point they want to join.
Yeah.
That's the best feeling when you see him at another reenactment. You're like, yeah, I recognize you.
Then they're on the other side shooting at you. Then you're like, man, you joined the wrong army. Yeah.
But yeah, it was after reading the book that then I got really interested, and then I started looking up other things of watching the Gettysburg the movie, and then if you watch the DVD with like the special features or something else comes up and it references this other thing, and then it's like, oh, well, let me look into that, and then it references something else. It's like, oh, let me look into that, and then it just snowballs off of that. So, but Roger, you mentioned you had some of your ancestors who fought in the Civil War. Do you want to give a full rundown of who you had?
Hayes Corley, which would be my great, I can't remember how my great grandfather. He was,
Really amazing guy because he was so great.
yeah, he was so great. He was from Barber County. He was on a train. He's actually joining the Union Army, and the war broke out. Virginia has succeeded while he was on the train heading to Wheeling. He actually joins the Shriver Grays in Wheeling because he didn't want to get all the way back to Barber County because he thought the war would be over by then. So he joins the 27th Virginia and ends up fighting at First Manassas. And by about the time of Antietam, his enlistment was out and he was going home. And he bumped into guys he knew from Barber County who happened to be in the 31st Virginia, and he joins up with them. So either his wife was really, really mean or he just didn't want to go home. He joined the 31st and fought through the 31st till the end of the war and was paroled in April of 1865 at Appomattox. I actually have his parole
Probably
paper.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
As we're recording this, we're doing it a bit early, even though this is airing around the anniversary of the Battle of Antietam / Sharpsburg. We're recording early just because these guys get kind of busy in the summer with reenactments.
We'll be very busy this year. We have the anniversary of Manassas, the anniversary of Philippi. We'll be in Gettysburg. We'll be all over the place.
Yeah, in May
really.
we got two. First weekend of May we're already at it.
Yeah,
And then I think we got like 1 week break, and then
two more.
here's Manassas, and
And then Philippi right after.
Philippi, and then
It just-
September is actually 4 back-to-back
Yeah.
because Jackson's Mill got messed
It
up.
happened in the past.
Yeah.
So, here's what you missed this summer, although we'll air this in early September is leading up to it. So you can still catch a few things. So look for them in September.
Yep. We'll definitely be in stuff in September.
And Turtle, what about your ancestor?
Well, I actually did a little bit more digging into that. Still have unknowns, but I had Roger help me because I'm horrible at these kind of things. He's like the master guru. We found one. He was joined. What did he join?
The 98th Militia.
98th Militia. And this is on my grandmother's side. And where'd he end up?
He actually ended up in a cavalry unit
Yeah.
of all things. He was actually hit, not seriously wounded, and I guess when he came out of the hospital, they had disbanded the 98th Militia, and he ended up joining a Virginia Cavalry Company, and was with them for the rest of the war. So Turtle's family history is pretty interesting because even though you were in a unit, if you were wounded, and that unit somehow mysteriously disbanded, they would assign you to a different company and a different regiment. So I think that's what happened to Turtle's relatives. They were just reassigned somewhere else.
And then the other one we have, what unit did he go?
He was actually in the 4th Virginia Infantry,
4th Virginia.
which was part of the Stonewalls Brigade.
I thought and then he went to 2nd, didn't he? Or
Yeah, and he went to 2nd Virginia.
yeah. Say he was under Patton at one point. He was under Patton. I had it traced all the way up to Carnifax Ferry in 1861.
Yeah,
And then where's that 62?
61.
61. And then it disappears on ancestry.com. It just doesn't say anything else. And I'm like, okay, he got wounded at Carnifax Ferry and he was done. I had Roger looked into it because I'm like, there has to be more to see if he got wounded, something else happened. Because it said he lived all of his life, but he joined the war at 40, which was kind of impressive back
Kind of old
then.
for that time.
Yeah. And Roger found out he ended up going to the 2nd Virginia. And where'd he end up?
Company D. He actually ended up surviving the war too. He was at Gettysburg. He was at Chancellorsville. He was all over, and he was actually mustered and paroled out of service in April '65 as well at Appomattox Courthouse.
You have the papers for me. You need to bring me those
Yeah, I
papers
need to
for
bring
coming
them.
today.
Now, speaking of the paperwork, I found paperwork for my grandma's grandpap, so a great grandfather who was in the Civil War as well. He's Charles Hoffer Deer, spelled Deer, as my grandma said, just like the animal. So he lived from February 6th, 1849 to September 18th, 1909. He was a Mason, which was listed on his enlistment card that we found a while ago the website no longer exists. So I can't look it up anymore. I had it at one point and then it's gone. I wish I would have. I know I printed some and gave it to some family members, but I didn't keep one for myself. Or if I did, I don't know where it went. But I think he was in the 193rd Pennsylvania Infantry. That he was in Company D. He was listed as a private, but his last name is spelled Dear. It's a Charles Deer from Pittsburgh. So I think it was him. I don't think there was another guy with such a similar name. He served from July 19th, 1864 to November 7th, 1864. So it was only 108 service. So they signed up for a short contract. He was only 15 years old at the time. So what were you guys doing at the age of 15? Yeah.
Me? I was in school.
Yeah, I wasn't doing
school.
Reenacting, actually. Homeschooled reenacting. I was the privileges of being homeschooled. I could go to battlefields more often.
Lucky.
No, they 193rd Pennsylvania, they were on guard duty for the Philadelphia, Delaware, and Baltimore Railroad in Maryland, and some provost duty in Wilmington, Delaware. So they didn't see a whole lot of action. They lost. They were in no major battles. They lost 10 soldiers to disease.
That
So
was very common.
yeah, that says something about the time. Now, the one we're certain of, and this was in his obituary, they mentioned he was in the 78th Pennsylvania Infantry. So I'm not sure if he was in the earlier one, if he was like too young to enlist and kind of lied about it. Maybe that's why he had a different spelling of the name, trying to sneak little things through, and so that it didn't come up. But he was in Company H. And now the details I found out were kind of a little muddled. That he was listed as a private for some, and then as a musician for others. But if he's, 15 years old or just turning 16, that might have been something he could have gotten in. But my grandma said that he did play music, and that she said that he was a drummer boy in the Civil War from her recollections. Enunciate. So he served in that from February 21st, 1865 to September 11th, 1865. So after the peace treaty was signed, they stayed on. He served in Nashville at the time. That's where they were. So not a whole lot of action there. But the one thing I found was going in as a private and out as a musician. So that was
He could have enlisted as a private, and they could have saw that he had musical talents, just moved him.
So yeah, and during our 3-part series about Gettysburg last year, and then the 2-part series about 2 years ago now, we talked a lot about the causes of the Civil War, or the War of Northern Aggression, according to the Confederates, as they give you thumbs up on it.
Yep.
Now, the perspectives of the war and slavery on both sides, and the backgrounds of many of the major figures of the war. We talked about it then, but I thought that we had such a great conversation about all those topics that I want to cover it again. And we're going to go into a whole lot more detail about the background of some of the figures that we're talking about later on when we get into the actual Battle of Antietam. So we all know history is written by the victors. So the facts sometimes get skewed a bit of, oh, you were on the losing side. So obviously this was a bad person, because only good people win things. Cheaters never win. Unless you're the Patriots. That's another story.
Yeah, it's all another topic.
So I think it's important, though, to get the record straight and to honor those who fought on both sides of the Civil War, because there were many honorable people that, and that's, again, gentlemen, if you want to expound upon why you actually do Civil War reenacting.
The reason I do it is what you just said, to keep their memory alive. I don't think the guy in the other uniform was so much looked at as an enemy, especially late in the war. Maybe early in the war, yes, but late in the war, no. I like what Chamberlain says in the movie Gettysburg: "Same land, same God, just different dreams." And I think that sums up the Civil War more than anything.
That was a tagline that was on the
Hmm.
movie poster for Gettysburg whenever it came out.
Yep. And and Robert E. Lee never called the Union Army the enemy either. It was always those people. He never called them the enemy. Stonewall Jackson didn't even call the Union Army the enemy. So I don't think they're. I think I agree with what Shelby Foote says. We were at a crossroad in this country, and I don't like to blame the
It
founding
was going to
fathers.
happen
It
either
was going to
way.
happen. But I hate to blame the founding fathers, but I kind of do in this situation, because they could have got rid of the whole slavery aspect in 1776. We kind of got what Thomas Jefferson said: slavery is like a tiger. You hold it by the tail, but you dare not let go of it, because you're afraid of what will happen. Um, so I kind of blame the founding fathers for the whole tragedy of the American Civil War. Plus, what one Southerner said: one Southerner can whip 10 Yankees. So there was a lot of sectional pride there too. Northern soldiers had pride, and Southern soldiers had pride,
Southern
and
soldiers had a lot of state pride.
they
That's
had a
why.
lot of
That's
state
why
pride.
they, because Lee didn't want to fight. Lee didn't want to fight at all. But once Virginia went, he's like, well, or including
Stonewall
Roger's
Jackson.
ancestor too.
Yeah,
His state succeeded. I go back to my home. Everybody is going to hate me because they see what color I wore.
yeah.
I'm going to fight for my home.
I don't know if anybody. I mean, I mean the Turtles, but General Thomas was a
Oh yeah,
Union general
everybody
out
hated
west.
him.
He was actually from Virginia, remained loyal to the Union. His sisters turned his picture backwards and would not talk to him after the Civil War, because he stayed loyal to the Union. So there was a lot of sectional pride there. There was also a thing in 1850s called the Merrill Tariff on Southern cotton that hurt Southern economy. So Northern abolitionists up north were trying to bleed the South financially, and slavery is wrong. I mean, we talked about that last time. It's a moral evil in any society. Modern machinery was coming out by the 1860s, 1870s. John Deere was getting started, and all these other agricultural companies. Slavery would have died out eventually. Because in the South, it was
And it's
getting,
even quoted in Gods and Generals.
yeah, it's getting uneconomical sound for them to have slaves in the South. So I believe what caused the Civil War was slavery was an issue, but the main issue was money, taxes, and the presidential election of 1860.
And so that's the difference, that there were the cause of the Civil War and there were reasons for the Civil War. That reasons were states' rights, economics, and slavery. That was part of it.
Yeah.
Actually, in several of the states' declarations of secession, I believe Mississippi specifically,
Mississippi was very,
that it was mentioned in.
yeah, very a lot. Not so much in Virginia's. Virginia did mention it once in their succession order, but I think Mississippi it's in there like 8 times over slavery in theirs. It's really potent.
And so those were reasons, but the cause, what they were fighting for, was mainly states' rights. And from a different perspective, for a lot of Southerners, it's defense against an invasion from.
What they considered a foreign invader.
Yeah, and secession happened for those reasons. But then, as the war goes on, it's okay. People are invading my land and trying to kill us.
I'm going to shoot you.
I'm gonna shoot back.
Yeah.
And there was also a very different perspective of just the world at the time. That, as we mentioned, slavery, not a good thing, but it was seen that the African American slave, they weren't seen as people, seen as property. And even like, what was it, 3/5 of the person, what they were counted as on the census.
And that was set forth by Roger Tenney in the United States Supreme Court when Dred Scott tried to sue for his freedom. Roger Tenney, who was the Chief Supreme Court Justice of the United States, said that he could not sue for his freedom because he's not considered a citizen of the United States. He's property. And the sad thing is, Roger Tenney was from Massachusetts.
He was a northerner.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm saying Lincoln, beginning of the war, he had Congress say the war is about putting the states back together, not slavery.
In fact, he writes a letter to one of the leading abolitionists of the time, said, if I can save the Union by freeing some slaves, I will do so. And if I can preserve the Union by freeing none of the slaves, I will do so. And if I can preserve the Union by freeing all the slaves, I will do so. This war is not over slavery, it's over Union. And that was in 1861, till about the time he signed the Emancipation. He really believed that.
I still think the only reason he signed it was because he's losing.
Well, it was to keep England and France out of the war.
Yeah, because he was losing.
That's why he signed the Emancipation.
Yeah.
England was about to come over. France was about to come over.
Even the Russians were about ready to recognize the Confederacy. I mean, that's how close it was in 62.
Speaking of Confederacy, that the perspective of the United States, just of the country, was different then. This is brought up in the movie Gettysburg and the book The Killer Angels, that it was, the United States was, well, literally thought of as a confederacy. It was not the the United States was probably a very good name for it, because it's states that were united, and it's sort of, and in Gettysburg, you talk about the gentleman's club analogy. All right, all these states are individual entities. We agree to be together. So if we decide that we don't want to be the United States, we have the right to not be united with you.
Yeah, because they all had separate money at the time too. Because Arkansas had their own,
Virginia had theirs, and the exchange
New
rate
York
was
had their
different.
own.
So if you were from Massachusetts, you come to Virginia, your money might be worth half of what it's worth in Virginia.
Yeah.
There was a national bank, but it really had no teeth or no power. It was all up to the states and the states' assemblies.
Now, I do want to make a clarification. They talked about a gentleman's club. It's not one of those gentlemen's clubs. Okay? It's not that type of money. So we're not throwing around singles to
Oh no, Pickett was wearing French cologne. He might have been part of that club. Who knows?
General Hooker too.
So General Hooker.
And there's a
Yeah.
reason for that name nowadays. So we'll actually hit on that later on too. So we is very it's inappropriate to look at and judge the actions of people during the Civil War based on current sensibilities and current. That's why I wish I was an English major. Current morality.
Mhm.
It was a different thing. Just like back in the 1950s, everyone smoked. Back in the 60s, using
In
drugs was
90s
something
too, you
to do.
had everywhere was like, did you sit in non-smoking or smoking? Because half the restaurant was smoking. I remember going to Eaton Park and all that. You just had a little thing for smoking there.
And that little, wooden barrier between the two.
Yeah.
That wouldn't stop smoke.
No, ain't gonna stop anything.
It's like an airplane, the smoking section back in the teens.
Let's smoke in something that has pressurized air and jet fuel, because that always ends well for people.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, just think back to the 1980s and look at the hair. It made sense at the time, all right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the 70s. We had disco then, all right?
Yeah.
Now, we mentioned some of the movies already. We're gonna go to a few of those now. There's Gettysburg. This is based on, as I mentioned, The Killer Angels by Michael Schraeder. It was made in 1993 about the Battle of Gettysburg, conveniently. It'd be really weird if it wasn't about that. Now, some of the cast. Robert E. Lee was played by Martin Sheen, James Longstreet by Tom Berenger, George Pickett by Stephen Lang. And by the way, we'll get into some more of these characters and their backgrounds later on. J. Johnston Pettigrew was George Lazenby. Anyone know who that was? And another George Lazenby? James Bond.
Oh, that's right. He was James.
I'm not a James Bond guy.
Yeah, he was
It was
James
only in
Bond.
one movie. It was only one movie. It was on Her Majesty's Secret Service, where he
Yeah.
actually gets married.
Yeah.
And his wife dies at the end. Spoiler alert, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Anyone hasn't seen that movie that's what, 50 years old?
I might watch James Bond one day. Thanks.
Yeah, you just rolling it for Turtle.
By the time you actually watch it, you're not going to remember what happened in that
That's
movie, so don't
fair.
worry.
Yeah.
Walter T. Patton, who was mentioned before, that is the great uncle of George Patton. He's played by Ted Turner. Yes, the TV mogul.
Atlanta Braves.
I'll say he's the one who kind of funded this movie, so he was getting a spot in it. Joshua Chamberlain, who is played a big role in Battle of Gettysburg. He's not going to have a big role now in Antietam, but that's Jeff Daniels. Thomas Chamberlain, his younger brother, is played by C. Thomas Howell. This is Tyler from E.T. I think this is one of the older brother's friends. I think I said before on the other podcast it was Elliot. It's not Elliot, but he is in the movie. John Buford, played by Sam Elliott. Buster Kilrain by Kevin Conway. And Ken Burns has a bit role as an aide to Winfield Scott Hancock.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, he's the one to rise up and tell us, "Get down off your horse, General. We can't spare you." That's Ken Burns.
Yeah, so he just on and off real quick, one little speaking line. With all his documentary on the Civil War, and it's very, very good. It's a little bit dry. That they use a lot of pictures. There's not a lot of actual video. Unlike his National Parks documentary, which I think is just so amazing, that he has a lot of video there. So it's a little bit better to look at than just seeing these pictures, still pictures, and like a picture of a letter or something like that that's on the screen. So it gets a little bit dry in there, but it's good information. So if you want to spend a couple hours watching that. Now, another movie that came out in 2003 is Gods and Generals, based on the book by the same name by Michael Schur's son, Jeff. And you raise your hand there, Roger?
I was an extra for Gods and Generals.
And in which battles, or just in?
I was in the Fredericksburg battle.
That's pretty
And I was not wearing gray. So just a heads up, I was wearing blue. I had to go Union that weekend.
They probably made you do
I
it.
did. I had to. They didn't have enough Union troops for when we were crossing the bridge. And you see it, there's like names every brigade. I was marching with the Irish Brigade.
Do you blame anyone?
Nah, not really. Not really.
I would have worn whatever color would be in that. So I'm right there with you. So this goes pretty much the pre-Civil War era through pre-Gettysburg. So it's like the first half of the Civil War. The Antietam scenes were removed from the film, but they're added back in the director's cut.
Yeah, 150th edition has them.
Yep.
Yeah, so it has something we'll talk about a little later on is Miller's cornfield, and the soldiers are like shooting each other from just a couple feet away, a couple yards away, or as they say, as I looked up, a couple meters away, which it's not accurate. It's feet or yards. Come on. Now the cast of this: Robert E. Lee is played by Robert Duvall.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thomas Stonewall Jackson is played by Stephen Lang. So he
That's why he's not Pickett in that movie.
I think that's a promotion though.
Interesting thing though, if you ever get to meet Stephen Lang, he's one of the nicest guys you ever want
He
to meet.
goes up to Gettysburg all the time.
He's always
You
in
need to go up
Gettysburg.
there and meet him.
And that says something about a lot of the people who are in some of these movies, that after they play these parts, that they really get into activism for it and promotion of it.
Well, he's wrote a book. He wrote a children's book, The Wheatfield.
Yeah.
He was just in the movie Gettysburg 1863 to show like the life of civilians during Gettysburg. He's playing is it John Burns?
Yeah.
He's playing John Burns, and I'm like, they turned Gettysburg into what it looked like in 1863. They had a battle in the street, had to like put
Yeah, right down Stonewire Avenue, right on to Baltimore. They actually did a full scale
little battle.
little battle. It was
And I'm like, ah.
And with special effects and CGI now, you can actually do that stuff. So if they were going to film,
They had one green screen to
Yeah.
block out a modern day building and an air conditioning, which the air conditioning got a lot of griping online, which was funny because they took the air conditioning. The company that was making it is actually the aide to General Lee in Gods and Generals. It's Major Taylor. That is their director. He's in Gods and Generals in Gettysburg. He's the director of this movie. So he made a joke and he posted online and he has the air conditioning following them everywhere. He puts it in the tents. He puts it
yeah, he's like
everywhere.
putting it everywhere. Yeah.
It's hilarious. But they did a whole thing down the street and I'm like, that is cool.
now in Gods and Generals, James Longstreet is played by Bruce Boxleitner. So anyone who is a fan of the Tron movies, he's also in those. Walter T. Patton, again, played by Ted Turner. Joshua Chamberlain by Jeff Daniels. Thomas Chamberlain by C. Thomas Howe. Buster Kilrain, again, is Kevin Conway. Sadly, there's no Ken Burns in this one.
But we did get Robert C. Byrd,
Who was how long?
played General Tolliver.
Yeah, how long was he in the?
He's only in one scene, in the Fredericksburg scene, where Lee is discussing the battle plans for Fredericksburg, and Lee makes a comment, "It's all in God's hands," and you hear someone say, "Amen," and they pan this older-looking general saying, "Amen." It's Robert C. Byrd.
When he was a state senator in West Virginia for
Good
Ever.
That's over here.
55
Ever.
years. I don't know. Yeah,
My grandfather knew him.
there's a high school named after him. So yeah.
There's a road named after him. You know, the FBI center's named after him. Mhm.
Clinics, all that stuff.
Yeah, another movie is Andersonville, which was based on the book with that same name by McKinley Cantor. The movie was made in 1996 as a TV movie. It aired on TNT, so there's Ted Turner's involvement again. So this was a notorious Confederate prison camp in Andersonville, Georgia. There's where it gets the name. Now the cast, since it was a TV movie, didn't have a whole lot of big names, although who you might be familiar with is William H. Macy and also Thomas F. Wilson. Anyone know who that is?
Well, that name sounds familiar.
I got nothing.
Biff Tannen from Back to the Future.
That's right. That's right. Wake up, McFly.
Never watched Back to the Future.
Were you born under a rock? Don't answer that.
Yes.
I'm afraid you will say yes, Tanner.
Thomas had a rough life. Okay.
I focused on one thing, okay? Once I learned about the Civil War, I focused on that. I didn't watch movies. I watched Star Wars, Civil War, and that is basically still my life.
So you need to watch Back to the Future because it brings up the concept of time travel when you can actually go back and see stuff from the Civil War.
You don't want me to have time travel.
We live in a whole different universe.
You You ever watch Deadpool, the beginning, the second one, and he has time travel?
No comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't want me to have time travel.
Another good one is movie is Glory. This is based on a book called Lay This Laurel by Lincoln, is it Kirstein? And
Kirstein.
another book, it's One Gallant Rush by Peter Burchard. So this was made in 1989. This follows the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment. It's one of the first African American regiments. It was active from March 13th, 1863 through August 4th, 1865. The film ends after the Battle of Fort Wagner, which happened on July 18th, 1863. So it does not follow the 54th Massachusetts very long. It's basically from the inception and their formation through this battle, which is pretty catastrophic.
And the movie follows Robert Gord Shaw, which, funny enough, starts at Antietam.
Yeah, he's at the Bloody Lane. His regiment was one of the ones that attacked the Bloody Lane.
And a few people in this movie, Matthew Broderick, who is the main, what is his rank?
He's a colonel.
He's a colonel. He's the head of the
Of the regiment. Yeah.
There's Carrie, is it Yowles? Elwes. So you remember him from such films as Robin Hood Men in Tights, The Princess Bride. He's even in the Days of Thunder. He's the new upcoming guy.
He drives the Hardy's car.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is like going against. I forget what his name is. And then he's also in Hot Shots.
Hmm.
So this is a more serious role for him, which he pulls it off well.
Yeah, he does. He actually does a good job. And that's what I said last time. How do you take a comedy actor and make him into a serious role? And he does a good job playing the major of the 54th.
And so how much, how actors who are in comedies are often kind of disparaged, like he's this comedic actor, he's goofing off. But then he's a good actor.
Hmm.
So also in here is Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, and then Andre Brower, I guess Braugher. He's the educated, very scholarly African American who joins the 54th Massachusetts. Kind of like a main character in the movie.
He just passed away not too long ago, too, because he's in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now some of the books. We mentioned a few of these before. The Killer Angels. This was written in 1974 by Michael Schraeder. Again, the Battle of Gettysburg. As I mentioned before, it's historical fiction, so the general facts are true. Most of the characters are real people. The dialogue captures the spirit of what was likely said. Some of it's exact words that they would know from somebody's book or a letter or multiple resources that firsthand accounts of, yes, this is what he said type thing. But two guys talking in Lee and Longstreet talking in Lee's tent the night before Pickett's charge. We don't know exactly what was said for every little thing, but we know what they were talking about in general, so we can kind of figure it out.
Buster Kilrain not being real.
Yeah.
Which actually I was a little bit sad about finding out because he died at Gettysburg in the movie, and I'm just like, I'm gonna go look for his grave when I go up there. Which there is a person named that. That's just not him though.
Yeah, that character is actually based off of like 4 different sergeants.
Yeah, it's kind of poetic license of this is your everyman explaining from the soldier's point of view. He's been there, done that. He's a veteran. He's trying to helping Chamberlain learn the ropes a little bit and giving him some advice. So he gets like voice opinions and ideas that help to bring the audience back up to speed with what's going on. And the Michael Schraeder also wrote the book For Love of the Game, which was a movie about a baseball player pitching a perfect game, and like he keeps reminiscing about like his love life as he is going on. He's not paying attention to the game, which that's how you pitch a perfect game. Is you're not concentrating on the fact you're pitching a perfect game.
Unless
So-
you're Doc Ellis and you use LSD the whole game.
Then you're definitely not focusing on it.
That ain't a ball coming at me. That's a dragon.
Yeah.
So, For Love of the Game starred Kevin Costner and Kelly Preston. So Kevin Costner is the pitcher. Gee, Kevin Costner in a baseball movie. Who would have ever thought?
Oh man, if you build it, they will come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's a good Devil Anse Hatfield.
Yeah, he plays a real good Devil
He's
Anse
real good
Hatfield.
Devil Anse Hatfield.
Other book we mentioned is Gods and Generals by Jeff Schraeder. It was written in 1996. We have pre-Civil War up to right before Gettysburg. And then he followed up with The Last Full Measure in 1998. And this is post-Gettysburg to the end of the Civil War. So if you take the three books together with Gods and Generals, then The Killer Angels, then The Last Full Measure, you have like the span of the Civil War. Although Gettysburg gets to a whole lot more detail because it's one book on like a 5-day period. They start a few days before the battle begins.
What we're asking is please make the third book a movie.
Oh, The
Please.
Last Full Measure.
Yes.
I would love to see that as a movie. I know they're not going to get the original actors because this is
A couple of them's passed and a
Yeah,
lot of them.
Age.
30 years since the original, since Gettysburg. And
Stephen Lang as Pickett. That's all we're asking.
Yeah, bring back Jeff Daniels as Chamberlain.
We're asking just for a few
Just
things.
just two.
And then hey, they made
Martin Sheen can be Lee. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I think you Charlie Sheen or Emilio Estevez. I mean, you got the similar look from them.
Yeah, that's
Martin
true.
Sheen was a good Lee. I'll take. Martin Sheen was a good Lee, but Robert Duvall looked like Lee.
Yeah.
I always thought Martin Sheen was a little bit, and nothing against Martin Sheen. He seemed a little bit too chubby, a little bit to be Lee. And they made him look a little bit frumpy, and Lee was not frumpy at all. He was more stout, more of a skinny man than what they made him out to be in Gettysburg. Robert Duvall did look like a better Lee than Martin Sheen did.
Like Martin Sheen did the talking as Lee
Oh,
would,
yeah.
but Robert Duvall
Had the look.
looked
Had the
like
look.
if you put a picture of Robert E. Lee the day like after surrender where he's sitting in the chair, and you take Robert Duvall in Lee's uniform and put it beside it, you couldn't tell.
Well, at the end of the movies, they put up a picture of the actor in full costume, and then they put pictures of the characters they were portraying, and they did a incredible job of matching them up and making them look like it, from the facial hair to
The one that impressed me was Chamberlain.
oh yeah.
I mean, if you look at a picture of Chamberlain, look at a picture of Jeff Daniels, it's
On
scary.
point. Yeah, it was on point.
And even C. Thomas Howell looked like Tom.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they did a good job matching the people up with who they wanted to play.
Oh, they did their homework. Yeah, and they made Harrison Ford look young in the last Indiana Jones.
Mhm.
So if we want to bring back some of those other characters, some of the other actors, we can do it.
Yeah.
Now, Jeff Shaw wrote a whole bunch of other books too. Yeah, and
That's
Turtle showed me a picture there.
Mhm.
About in different wars, and we'll run down some of his in a minute. But one that is apt for this is Gone for Soldiers. It was written in 2000. This is the Mexican-American War, which was from 1847 through 1848. And the neat thing about this is you get to see some of the characters from the Civil War earlier in their careers, and you get to learn about their relationships that are referenced in the Civil War books. For example, with Hancock and Armstead, of how they were such good friends. You actually get to see that friendship, and you see a lot. And we're to mention some of the things that some of these generals during the Civil War did during the Mexican-American War. You're gonna see how their paths crossed and where they met, and it's pretty interesting to read more about in that book. Andersonville, which we mentioned before, written in 1955. So that's an old book. I didn't realize it was that old. And that's another historical fiction. So it brings things really to life. It's
the
pretty
movie
cool.
was originally supposed to be a TV show, but if you watch that movie, it kind of scary on how prison camps were back then.
Yeah, and it was a TV miniseries.
Yeah, and then they made it a movie because it just
combined.
was so long.
And that's another thing about the Civil War. I always tell people, yeah, go visit the battlefields, but you can still go to the field at Andersonville. You can still go to Point Lookout, Maryland.
I should have brought that brick.
Yeah. The prison camps were horrible on both sides. I couldn't imagine being a prisoner of war. I'd rather have been shot.
Yeah,
I would rather have been killed outright than be a prisoner of war at that time.
That's what some of them did. There was at least in Andersonville, it's a very
there was a lot of people. Yeah, they dig a tunnel and go up, try to get out.
Yeah,
Or they'd go to the deadline and cross over so a guard would shoot them.
Which that's the scene too. The guy just
walks right
gives
up,
up, walks over, and they get the Confederate soldiers got paid for each Union soldier they killed. in there. So it's like, oh, you walked the deadline. Well, I'm gonna get paid. They just
And that's what the deadline. So there was the wall of the prison, and there was what, like 10 feet from the wall, there was a line. You cross that, you're shot.
Yeah.
Just through it.
There was no warning. You crossed it, they wouldn't even say get back. It
boom.
was you were dead.
And they would trick. If you watch the movie, they have little kids guarding it. The kids are tricking them like, well, give me the money, and I'll mail that letter for you once you cross that line. Boom.
Yeah.
I yeah, they were brutal. And it was the same way in the Union prison camps too. They treated Southerners just about as bad as we treated the Yankees. I mean, it was that's what Charles said. You had kids. You have kids out there doing a man's job who look at death a lot different.
Yeah, they had it. They said it down there. One of the Union soldiers in Andersville in the show. It's like they had guard you down here. They robbed the cradle and the grave to guard you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are another than of the elderly, the ones who are not fit for active duty were in guard duty at these prison camps. Another book is 3 Months in the Southern States, April through June of 1863. This is written by British Coldstream Guards Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Fremantle. So it's basically his diary that he kept. That he's featured in Killer Angels and Gettysburg. That he, has more of a prominent role, I think. In well, actually, he's pretty big in both. But it just tells about his time in America, that he was here as like an emissary, observing the Confederate Army.
Here's basically this is another one that was kind of an attaché, wasn't he?
Von Bork, he was actually an officer. He was actually a Confederate officer.
Yeah, because I think it's shown a bit better in the book Killer Angels. It's just kind of glossed over in the movie Gettysburg that there were other foreign emissaries, military personnel who were observing the Confederacy.
Especially the Prussians, the Brits, the French, and the Russians. They were really involved. They weren't allowed to give military advice to the generals, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's hard to be an officer and not look at another officer and say, hey, well, if you do this, this might work better. They're supposed to be non-combatants. But I guarantee you, if Arthur Fremantle got the chance, he would give Longstreet advice.
Oh, even he asked, you were saying like he kind of wished he had a gun that that he could go and join.
Yeah, I'm sure Arthur Fremantle would have been more than happy to lead a brigade or a regiment. I mean, it's in their blood. It's back then. They were trained military officers. They were looking for a fight at all times with somebody.
And it's a soldier being a soldier. Like you want to fight. Like even when I'm told to stand down at a reenactment because of my health conditions, I'm at a reenactment. That is my thing. I want to go out and do that reenactment. And you can ask him. I will be itching. Be like,
there's been times we've had to almost strap him down in camp.
And I'll get mad too. I'll be like, it's not that hot out. Let me go. No.
Turtle doing his Khrushchev impersonation of pounding the table there too.
I didn't mean to do that. I was looking in this book for something.
Some other books by Jeff Sherrod that are not Civil War related, but they are military related, and they're good books. Again, they're written in that historical fiction. So if you want a some background, is that he has Rise to Rebellion, written in 2001. This is the pre-Revolutionary War, pre-American Revolution. Then The Glorious Cause in 2002, which is all about the Revolutionary War. Then he has a 4-part series about the Western theater during the Civil War, a book about World War I, a trilogy about World War II, 3 other books about World War II that aren't part of that trilogy, a book about the Korean War, one about Teddy Roosevelt, and then one about the Cuban Missile Crisis. So I knew about all the back in the Civil War and the older ones. I didn't know about so many of his older ones. So now I have to add stuff to my reading list. But if you Google him, you can find his bibliography. I guess what you would call it.
I don't know what you would call that.
Yeah, the book list. The list of books he's written.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled podcast. All right, so we went for this discussion 4 hours, 40 minutes, 58 seconds. So we're going to break this up into several different parts. In case you didn't look at the title, this one's part 1. If you read the description, we're going up to part 5. So yeah, this went really long. We'll have next couple weeks. you're going to hear about the different aspects of the battle, a lot of the background of it. So, but I want to leave with a travel tip. When you go to a national park, whether it's going to be like Yosemite or if it's going to be a battlefield or even one of the museums like in DC, bring good shoes. You will do a lot more walking than many people will plan for. So make sure you have comfortable shoes, well broken in, that are appropriate for where you're going. Try to avoid the flip flops and the sandals. I know it can be hot and everything, but if you're going to be out hiking in a national park or even along the battlefields, comfortable, good, sturdy tennis shoes or hiking boots. If you're going to be out in the national parks, definitely hiking boots. You don't want to twist an ankle. Also, bring plenty of water. A lot of the national parks, they are up in elevation, and the higher the elevation, the drier the climate is a bit. And so you can get dried out a lot faster than you will at sea level. So please be aware of that. Plus, most people go to these national parks during the summer. It can be hot. It can be hotter than you imagine. You're especially out in the sun. You're hiking uphill, or even if you're going downhill, you're gonna have to go uphill again eventually. So bring that water. Carry plenty with you. Sometimes, if you're depends on where you're going. If you're going a little bit farther on these trails, they don't have water fountains everywhere. So make sure that if you want something to drink, you better bring it with you. Also, along those lines, don't underestimate the terrain, whether it's on a battlefield or in one of the national parks. Going up some of these hills can be steep, and they can be a lot longer. Basically, whenever my dad and I were out hiking in Yosemite, that we would go about 2 miles an hour. So whenever you're going uphill, it is hard work, and you stop and take pictures, and you want to take a little rest. But it averages out to about 2 miles an hour for us. So please be aware of the difficulty of the terrain, and be safe out there.
Everyone else out there, if you have a destination or experience that you'd like to have us discuss on the Where Yinz Goin podcast, or if you'd like to share your favorite place to visit or have a travel tip, feel free to contact me. I would love to hear your feedback and ideas. Gentlemen, do you want to give any contact information either about you or the 31st Virginia so people can find you?
I forget our email, but 31st Virginia Company H, we do have a Facebook page. You can reach out to us on there, or my Facebook is Tyler Turtle. I can contact you somewhere. You can contact me that way, and we can, if you want to get into the hobby or learn about the battles and all that.
And I'm just at the events usually. I don't even have Facebook anymore. So
Yeah, I have to tell him where to go.
yeah, he has to tell me that's why you're the corporal. But the best way to get a hold of us is just find us at an event. You go to Facebook, we usually have our schedule on Facebook.
Yeah, on our Facebook page, it should be posted up on there.
Just come to camp and talk to us. If you have any questions about getting into the hobby, we'll definitely answer them.
We'll probably put you in right then and there.
Yeah,
We've
because
done that.
sometimes we've put people right in the ranks right then and there. Conscription, yeah.
So here at the podcast, we're on Facebook and X at Where Yinz Goin, Yinz YINZ Goin GOIN with the apostrophe and the question mark. My email is Matt MATT at dreamsbydesigntravel.com. All this information is going to be in episode description. So if you want to contact me to book a trip, or if you have any questions, or want to come see the guys and do a reenactment, by the way, if we find the email address, it's going to be in the episode description. So we'll be all good. Please like, follow, subscribe, leave a review, tell a friend. This was amazing, guys. This was awesome. It's such a great conversation all the time with you. Let's figure out what our next conversation is going to be.
We need to pick another battlefield.
I have to visit Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville. I have to get there first, and then we can follow up on something along those lines. I don't know if we can do a whole thing on Harper's Ferry, but
I mean, I could,
You could.
because you have John Brown, you have the Civil War, like the whole war, you have Washington, Jefferson. It's built back so far and so much stuff. I could probably do it. I'm down. When I grew up, I was down there every other week. I can do it. Trust me.
Mhm.
So again, thank you very much, gentlemen. I greatly appreciate what you do, both in spreading history, teaching other people, and then coming on here to just have great conversations. So everyone else out there, please join us next time. We're Hananat. We'll see you later.